just talk about story. So that's why it's crucial we spend enough time in the class.
Hello, everybody. All right. See if everybody's here. Where's my... Welcome back. 9:14. All right. Let's see. Abby.
Here.
Laura.
Here.
Deidre.
Here.
Ashley.
Here.
Paulina. I do see her. Akili. I see you too. Liam.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Emily.
Here.
Mara.
Here.
Savannah.
Here.
Carrie.
Here.
James Lynn. No, I do not see. Amanda.
Here.
Steffi.
Here.
Christina.
Here.
Naja.
Here.
Morgan. Gianna.
Here.
Apurva.
Yeah.
Emma. Don't think I see her. Samantha.
Here.
Jenny.
Here.
Joy. And Alexis.
Here.
Okay. Last call. Let's see. James Lynn. Morgan. Emma.
I'm here.
Oh, all right. Good, good,
I
good.
did.
And then Joy. All right. Martha, Steffi, Christina. Okay. I think I think I see Morgan now. I do not see Joy, James Lynn, or Joy and Jessica. Okay. All right, guys. So we'll get started. Welcome back. I can't believe it's Monday again. Whew, busy weekend.
Professor, sorry, I was a little late. Morgan, did you? Oh, okay. Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. All right. Okay. So let's start with one of these New York Times visual graphs. This is not like an incredibly exciting one, but it is about food, which is my favorite topic. So I guess it is exciting. Okay, so let's see. What I'll do is I'll give you guys a link. Well, not yet. And I'll give you guys, no, I'll just share. I think that would be the easiest. No, I should give you guys the link too. Yes, so you can look at it together. Okay. All right, so in the chat, I will give you guys a link. But I will also share my screen so you know where we are. All right. So put that over here and put you guys on this side. But have the grid view so I can see you guys. All right. So every week or so, the New York Times kind of publishes new kinds of visual graphs. This is not like a recent one. This is actually from last year. But I kind of wanted to bring it up because, we talk a lot about food and stuff like that, and the impact on climate. So this is kind of a lot of graphs considering that. your questions about food and climate change. And it kind of like looks like some of the graphs that we might have learned, right? All right, so this is the very first one called Holy Cow, the average greenhouse gas impact in kilograms of CO2 of getting 50 grams of protein from all of these kind of things, okay? So what do we see here, guys? What is this telling us? At the very minimum, is it good to be at the top on the graph here or at the bottom? It's kind of like
Bottom.
bottom, very good, right? It's a flipped bar chart. You know, we've been talking about bar charts. So because the bottom, well, it's on the side, but you know, if you flip it, the bottom is, or the side is categorical, and we see like numbers on the Y axis, if you will, if you flipped it. Anyway, so the bottom is better and the top is worse. So what does it mean?
Beef contributes to the most CO2.
Mm-hmm.
And nuts are the least.
And nuts are the least, right? So I actually didn't know beef was this high, or like compared to pork.
Are crustaceans seafood?
Yes, crustaceans are seafood. I actually didn't know that word, and my other section taught me. I was like, oh, new words every day. English is a hard language for me. Oh well. Yeah, so farmed seafood basically. And apparently this is a big thing. I didn't know. We'll like look at it more. Okay, so that's the first graph. And then I think you guys can all access this because I believe FIT we get like free New York Times subscription. And then it tells you, wait, did I skip it? It's not like a very colorful article. And look at this. Okay, so then we talk. They want to talk about seafood, and apparently, surprisingly, look at this. It's like farmed something, farmed something, farmed something, farmed something, and all these common seafood that we see. A lot of these are, I guess, farmed these days, which I had no idea. But okay, let's accept that's true. Try and go, if you have the link, try and go and rank these seafood options in order from highest climate impact to lowest. So what do you guys think? So you can like kind of move this around. So it's an interactive, not necessarily a graph, I guess, but in a weird way, a very simplified version of a graph, because, you know, it's kind of like, there is some kind of order, right? A rank, and then you have these kind of like buckets, or if you will. Not necessarily a graph, but definitely an interactive visual. What do you guys think? Any wild guesses? I have no idea.
Well, they said that crustaceans were higher than like regular seafood, so I guess like farmed shrimp would be closer to the top maybe, because
How do we know from between farm shrimp and farm tilapia and farm this and farm this one? Hard to know, huh? Well, that's a good argument because we just received that information. So the wild ones are probably at the bottom. I have no idea if it would, what difference do these make? Maybe these are easier to catch.
yeah, because they're all in shells.
Yeah, I have no idea if that's actually true. I'm just like making wild guesses. Okay, let's go with this. Done. What's the right order? Oh, I got so wrong, guys. Farm shrimp is at the top. So for some reason, shrimp is at the top, and then it's tilapia. Hey, we were wrong. Wild tuna is actually third. And then it's farmed salmon, farmed mussels, and the wild anchovies all at the bottom. That's interesting. So that's kind of interesting. So apparently there's a huge caveat to all wild seafood. We are catching just basically at the ceiling. Most fisheries are being fished at their maximum sustainable level, and others are overexploited. So basically we can't survive unless we farm fishes, it seems like, which I didn't know. I had no idea that was the case. As a fish lover, I feel slightly bad. And then apparently you can check with science-based sources like Seafood Watch to see if the fish you buy is being harvested sustainably, right? So I know FIT is kind of like big on sustainability, mostly, you know, in regards to fashion, but you know, why not for food? So is farm seafood a good long-term plan? Look at this. I had no idea this was like an actual thing. Apparently, fish farms and stuff, this whole thing is called aquaculture. We're going to eat more seafood in the coming decades. Most of that increase will likely come from fish farms, which was also known as aquaculture. So having these farms with all that fish is called aquaculture, which is another new word that I learned. And apparently I wasn't really thinking why it would have a high climate impact, but really apparently it has to do with, you know, you get the boats out and all of that and the fuel that's being used to go catch those different crustaceans. Some fish farms in China have produced enormous quantities of methane from probably from the fuel. There are plenty of promising efforts underway to clean up fish farming and make it more climate friendly, but there's still a long way to go in many parts of the world, apparently. So that was new to learn. And look at this, my favorite food category, dairy. So what about different dairies? So this is apparently, wait, before we look at this, I think there was another one. No, there isn't. Oh, this is comparing all kinds of food categories. Okay, so dairy is like this, milk versus quote in quotation mark milk. So cow, again, is the worst, apparently. And oat is all the way down here. I'm like crazy about oat milk, so that's kind of nice. And almond milk apparently uses up quite a bit of water, and I'm assuming that's not too good, right? What can we learn from this, guys?
No, that's why they say oat milk is like better, so still more sustainable in that way for the environment because of the water use of almond.
Oh, is that right? People say that.
Yeah. And that's why it's like so popular in like all the coffee shops now and stuff like that.
I thought oat milk was popular because, well, it's not like the coffee shops, they don't make it. They already buy something that's already pre-made, right? But I thought it was because oat was, had like a thicker texture. So baristas like prefer that to make lattes and stuff. That's what I thought was the reason. And
Yeah, I guess I thought it was just tasted different. I don't know about the thickness. I don't know.
I think it tastes
My sister told me because she's a barista, it's easier to do like latte art with it, and also with almond milk, you can burn it basically. Like if you're doing like a hot, like you can burn it, and so like then it ruins the taste of the coffee because the milk is burnt. Like when you steam it, so it's a lot easier with oat milk because you're not going to burn it when you're steaming it, and then it's a lot easier for the latte art, as well as it just adds a better flavor, apparently.
I hear about the latte art. Yeah, it's thicker, it's closer to milk for those who do not prefer milk. I mean, I like milk, but for health reasons. And look at this. Apparently, I was also not affecting the climate as much by just choosing something that tasted better. That rarely happens. Okay, but unfortunately there's like this boycotting going on with the Oatly. Did you guys hear about this? Makes my choices so much like harder to do.
But it's like, I mean, at the end of the day, no company is like ever gonna not be connected to like a non-sustainable thing as long as we're existing. So it's like the Oatly boycott is kind of silly.
That is true. I mean, this whole like,
but there are a lot of other brands too, though. Like there's so many other brands like in the oat milk section that you know, if you wanted to, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just feel like every brand is connected to some sort of like unsustainable or like unethical practice.
That's true. In a way. If we're living in this society, guys, we're all participating in all kinds of horrendous stuff, right? I mean, everybody's own a smartphone. We know the horrendous stuff that happens in other countries. Basically, more or less, you know, we are supporting all kinds of terrible, inhumane things, but we're using it, right? If you bought anything from Amazon, probably again, right? I mean, it's just like inevitable, but this is the society we live in. Oh God. Anyways, on that note, climate friendlier diets. So there's a lot of controversy around it, I guess, too, but vegan does seem to be on average a more climate friendly diet. partly replace meat and dairy with plants. I mean, I'm not telling you guys to go be vegan. I mean, I barely can do that. So, but you know, it's good to know, right? We see we have a active chat going on. Let's see what's going on. Oat milk for the win. I know, oat milk's so good. And my husband was like, he tasted it, he's like, oh, it's so oaty. And like, that's the whole point. He's like, oh, he's like oatmeal in my mouth. I'm like, that's the point. He's like really disgusted by it. But also he does this like disgusting thing where he eats cereal with water. Oh, can you believe it? He's like, why not? And I'm like, because it's just horrendous. But apparently that's okay to him. So he has a weird palate. I know, that's a no. Apparently there's like this whole cult about people against cereal and water. Like this is a thing. I was like, I joined that cult. Okay, so last one. Which type of food do Americans throw out the most? So this is another thing that I'm very actually interested in, because apparently we, you know, you go to these grocery stores and all these beautiful fruit and veggies are laid out, but because we're such like visually compulsive buyers, maybe if you will, like it has to look good visually. So for us to buy something and assume that it's like in good shape, even though if it's a little bruised, it's totally fine, but we hate that kind of stuff. So because of that, apparently a lot of grocery stores end up throwing away a lot of just amazing, fine vegetables and fruits and stuff. So let's see. What do you guys think? Which type of food do Americans throw out the most? I wonder how much we throw out dairy bread. Probably these fresh things get thrown out a lot, right? Because they just don't last as long. What do you guys think? What should we put on the top?
I think fresh veggies and dairy products.
Okay. Oh, this is not interactive anymore. Oh. Oh, is this like...
You have to like click it. You just click the one that you think is the top.
Oh. Oh, that's a very different kind of interactive. Okay. Apparently not. Veggies are quite up there. But it's fish and seafood. That kind of makes sense, right? Seafood goes best so quickly. And fresh fruit as well, right? And fresh vegetables, these are almost the same. I mean, they're not that different, right? 31% to 24%. Eggs, meat and poultry, dairy, grains. Yeah, so apparently it's funny how it's like we're at like maximum consumption level for food. So it's at the point where we have to farm it and yet we waste it the most, right? How ironic is that? Interesting. It's good to know. All right. So anyway, so we can view this. Really, the two graphs that I were trying to focus on was this one. So it kind of mimics a bar chart and it kind of relates to what we are doing, as well as, oh, so many, as maybe it was this one. Anyways.
The vegan one?
Vegan one was it?
Oh, no.
Okay. Well, I'll let you know in a second because let's all go really quickly in here and I'll just take a few minutes. I'll put it in the chat, guys. So let's all go here. And like we always do, go grab a slide and write a few notes about, so the link that I have on the main page is what we just saw together. And the link I have on each of your slide is actually just showing the top two graphs that we were gonna kind of focus on. It's these two.
It says it doesn't. I don't have access. Like it's not.
All right, let me. It does this. It keeps like sharing. The privileges keeps like defaulting back to something, even though I change it. I wonder if this is like a new thing that Google's doing. See, it wasn't restricted. Change that. Then I gotta change it to anybody with a link.
Where is this again? Sorry, it's under content, right? Number 4?
No, I actually just posted in Zoom.
Oh.
Yes. So now
Okay, I have it now. Thank you.
in as well as edit, as in go. Remember, go. There's plenty for you guys. So go grab a slide. Make sure you put your name on the top, and then answer some of these questions. So it's basically for those two graphs, right? The first one that kind of mimics a bar chart, but kind of like sideways. and then the one we just did where we had to click on it and see what we waste the most in the United States. So just briefly go ahead and answer some questions, or answer those questions. And make sure you grab a slide. In the meantime, let's see, okay. It looks like,
It like won't let me edit. It says view only for me.
are you sure you're
The
in?
same thing happened to me. You just have to refresh it again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Setting, yeah. So I see that Joy is here now, right? Okay. Is there James Lynn? Have you joined us yet? No. All right, very good. All right, so just kind of like a fun thing to look at. But you know, see in real life how kind of like similar to bar charts are like being used. Okay. It's always good to like see in real life what we learned in class. All right. Great. Emma, Jenny, Christina, Carrie, Samantha, Naja, Deirdre, Savannah, Amanda, Mara, Paulina, Morgan, Emily, Abby, Gianna. I had I think she was a vegan or vegetarian in my other section. And I think it was like under what do you notice or something. And she goes, meat is terrible. And I was like, okay, I guess that's an acceptable answer. They're so funny. It's like no filter whatsoever. It's good to be young. It's like, I don't eat meat. I was like, that makes sense. All right. Worst environmental impact. Seafood is wasted the most. Very good, guys. You can like adjust the font and like do formatting stuff if you want. Meat gives off a lot of greenhouse gas. Good, good, good. None of products are common waste. Switch transmission. Because they aren't wasted as much as other categories. Interesting. Gas emissions. Yes, the overconsumption of beef is taking a toll on our environment. Indeed. Is it saying that the food is bad for us? Let's see. I like seeing this because it's, you know, the same information that's going to all of you guys, but you guys are all writing slightly different things, right? And maybe a little bit of added interpretation on top of that, which is like good. But it's like fascinating. I mean, I wouldn't say beef and these things are unhealthy, right? The way we like treat cows and chicken, that's like makes the maybe meat unhealthy, but like the way it was intended, I don't think they're necessarily terrible for you. It's kind of like, you know, with gluten, people think like it's gluten is like evil. I'm like, not actually, it's a natural ingredient. It's just that some people cannot digest it, right? So People go like, oh, it has to be gluten-free, gluten-free. I'm like, no, it actually doesn't have to be. That doesn't necessarily mean something's healthier. It just means that people can't digest gluten. Some people can't, like lactose intolerant people, right? Dairy doesn't.
Oh, I feel like it's the same thing with GMOs. I was like taking a health class and they were talking about how like GMOs, like they're like, oh, GMO free, GMO this, but really like the genetically modified fresh fruits and stuff like that is what makes it able for us to grow in these areas, and for pesticides like not to completely attack farmers' land. Like the GMOs aren't bad because you're genetically modifying it. It's when you put pesticides on it that becomes an issue.
Yeah, I think we like hear one thing and just make a judgment call right away. But if GMO is bad, then pretty much a lot of the stuff we eat, like we're not allowed to eat, right? I mean, none of the greens that we eat today is natural. Like it's all genetically modified, so it's softer for us to chew and digest. Bananas are not natural. This was, do you guys know, what was the story? Does anybody know the banana story? It's very fascinating. So basically, the banana as you know it was extinct a while ago, but some, I guess, person or company was able to extract the flavor of that original banana. And then, what was it? Whatever the fake banana candy thing is, like the original flavor of it. And what we eat today as banana is actually not the original banana or something like that. It's like a crazy story. You guys should look it up. I forget what it was, but it's like basically a lot of the stuff that we consume is not how nature originally created them, right? Almost everything's like genetically modified. I don't know if that's necessarily like only a good thing, but it's definitely, we wouldn't be able to survive if we didn't actually use GMO technologies. So, you know, it's like, it kind of gets you thinking, right? Fish farming, I didn't really know it was that common, but apparently this is just like the default now, right? So it's interesting to know these things. All right, I feel like in particular in this country, we got to be a little bit more conscious of what we eat, right? Just because food industry is just like so terrible. I don't know how it became like that. No idea. Okay, guys. All right, looks good. Awesome. Good work. Okay. So I'll be checking these, make sure that you do answer all of them, or at least something short. It doesn't have to be crazy, just like a short thing to make sure that you get, that you show me that you were here and listening and participating, okay? All right, so while some people finish that up, let's do a little bit of review, guys. It's been a little bit. So what have we learned so far? What are some concepts that we covered? Let's see who remembers. Anything at all that we learned so far?
Stem and leaf plot.
Very good. The last thing we learned, I believe, was the stem and leaf plot. What about the stem and leaf plot, guys? Kind of like a funky. What do we use it for generally? Anybody? We use it for a list.
Seeing peaks. Oh.
Right? We only use it for pretty much a list of numbers, right? And then we kind of split up the numbers, and the first digit usually goes on, you know, we draw a line and it goes on the right side of the graph, if you will, and then on the left side is usually the 10 digit or the 100 digit, right? So basically, if you think about it, the concept is if you like flipped it, just like the bar chart we were looking at that we flipped, if we flip it, it is kind of like a dot plot, right? Because we're basically looking at how many times did a certain type of number exist or appear, right? So in the 10s, in the 20s and 30s, how many appeared? And you can, if you flip it, you can even draw like a line around it to see where the peaks are and what the spread is. So that's kind of what the stem and leaf was all about. And we'll do a little review, watch a little video about that, okay? Good. What else did we learn about?
Population versus sample.
Excellent. Population versus sample. So what about them? Anybody?
To gather data in like a certain area.
Okay, what about, so if we gather some data in a certain area, what are you trying to explain?
Like we use it to describe, I don't know how to word it, like describe a certain, I don't know how to describe it.
Okay. Well, so let's break it down maybe a little bit further. Maybe that would help. So population versus sample, when we talk about it, which one is bigger, first of all?
Population.
Population, right? Population is the entire thing that we want to know about. Whether that's whatever your question is. Like if it's the food thing, we want to know all the farm shrimp farming places in the United States, right? We want to like research them. Then all of them is the population. But that's practically impossible, right? So what we said was that we usually take a portion of what we want to look at, right? And that's called a sample. Look, it sounds exactly like it is, right? We're taking a sample of it, right? So because that's more practical to do research on and collect the data from, right? Very good. So what were some related topics to population and sample?
Parameter and statistic.
Very good. Parameter and statistic. And what about them?
The parameter is like the population's mean, and then the statistic is the sample mean.
Okay, so so a mean is one of the things it could be, right? Parameter is any kind of number or characteristic that has to do with a population. And
So the same with the sample, with a statistic.
Exactly. And statistic could be a mean, it could be a median, it could be some kind of percentage or proportion, whatever it is. And that is describing the sample. Okay. And mean is a common thing that we do look at. Okay. So parameter versus statistic, right? We did the PPS, population parameter, sample, statistic. Okay. Very good. What other topics did we cover?
Variables.
Very good. Variables, Alexis, right? Yeah. Types of variables in particular, right? What kind of types of variables did we look at?
Categorical.
Categorical, very good. Categorical variables, what else?
Quantitative.
Quantitative variables. Those are the two big kind of pillars of the types of variables, right? One is quantitative, meaning numbers, because it's quant, and categorical, or sometimes we call it qualitative variables, right? Anything that has some kind of class or category, right? Your majors like FBM or AMC, that's a categorical variable. Your hair color, your so many, right? It's like too many that I can't even like. The types of colors.
Binary is yes or no, right?
Correct.
Or,
okay. So binary is a very specific type of categorical variable. And even though, you know, sometimes it's ones or zeros, we talked about these ones, right? Even though you might use a number, it's not really about the number, it's about the categorization, classification, right? So binary is a type of categorical one, and it means BI meaning two. It's two kinds of categories, right? It's yes or no, on or off, truth or false, or true or false, or 1 or 0. Even though, but it's not numeric, just because it's numbers and not numeric, it's just a categorization. Okay? Yes, very good. So binary is a very specific type. And it's used a lot, and that's why we separately kind of learned that as well. Excellent. Very good, guys. Seems like you guys are remembering a lot of the stuff we did. So stem and leaf plot was mentioned. What other graphs did we cover, guys? Anybody remember?
Dot plot.
Dot plots, very good. Dot plots. We like literally we draw dots and we're just counting how many there are, right? And we looked at the peaks, the spread, and whatnot. Very good. So we did dot plots and we did stem and leaf. What else? We even drew it together in Google spreadsheet. We did it together. What did we do? It was like one of the kind of in-class assignments. Bar charts, very good, right? So literally just there's bars. In spreadsheet, Google spreadsheet, they like to call it column charts because bars are like columns, right? So we did bar charts as well. Very good. Did we do any other graphs? I feel like there was one more, or maybe I'm about to teach one. Well, I am going to teach you one, but was that all? Dot plots, bar plots, stem and leaf plots. Okay, yeah, maybe that was it. And then we'll learn another one today, okay? All right, very good. You guys are really good. Excellent, very good. Okay, so we'll do a little bit of a review of the stem and leaf. It's a weird one, but you know, as Morgan pointed out, like, why would you ever like draw this one? Well, every graph has a different kind of purpose, right? So this is why I'll introduce another one, and then you'll be introduced to a few more throughout the semester. You guys probably all know pie charts. It seemed like everybody, when that was the default thing that was created for you in spreadsheet, everybody seemed to know what that was, right? Pie chart has a certain kind of characteristic, and bar chart does, and dot plot does, right? They're just a variety of things because people want to convey information differently, and then people also receive and understand information differently, which is why a variety of graphs can be used. And sometimes certain graphs are not appropriate, right? Depending on what you're trying to convey. Okay, so let's share my screen again. All right, so I'm gonna show you a little bit. So this one is a video from Khan Academy, and he's just gonna run through a few questions as he kind of explains the concept of stem and leaf plot. And I might skip through a few things, but basically it's a nice way to kind of review stem and leaf, okay?
The government created the following stem and leaf plot showing the number of turtles at each major zoo in the country. How many zoos have fewer than 46 turtles? So what the stem and leaf plot does is it gives us the first digit in each number, and essentially you could say it called us the tens place, and then it gives us the ones place. So there was only one zoo that had 4 turtles, so you could view this as 0, 0, 4, or 4 turtles. Then there's everything here, the tens place is a 1, so this number right over here is really an 11. This is a 14. This right over here would be a 16, that's a 16, and so forth and so on. This would be 17, 18. All of this is 23, this is 23, this is 26, because we have our tens place right over here. This is.
So before he solves it for you guys, how many zoos have fewer than 46 turtles, guys?
All of them.
All of them, very good. So in that case, you would count all of them, right? And remember that even if it's the same number, you don't like collapse it or only write it out once. You actually have to write it out the same number of times it appears, okay? So 16 and 16, right? It's and then 23 and 23 are done twice. Very good. So you'll just count that up. He counts it up. Oops. He counts it up, and that's a lot of stuff, right? Oops, it's not YouTube, so it doesn't let me. So we'll count that up, and that's like so and so many, right? Okay, so this one.
For a chain of supermarkets created the following stem and leaf plot showing the number of coconuts at each of the stores. What was the smallest number of coconuts at any one grocery store? So the buyer for a chain of supermarkets created the following stem of leaf plots showing the number of coconuts at each of the stores. So at any one grocery store, the smallest number, well, that's this one right over here. And remember, it's not 2. We have our tens places right over here. It's a 1. So this right over here represents 12 coconuts at that store. So we'll put 12 right over here. Let's try it on another one. A statistician for a chain of department stores created the following stem and leaf plot showing the number of watches at each of the stores. How many department stores have exactly 7 watches?
That should be quite easy. How many department stores have exactly 7 watches, guys?
1.
1, very good. Only one at the top, right?
Well, that's only this one right over here. 0, 7, 17, because it's in the row with the, it's kind of fun. A zookeeper created the following stem and leaf plot showing the number of tigers at each major zoo in the country. How many zoos have more than 24 tigers?
So how many have more than 24 tigers, guys? Really quickly.
I think it's 9. 9.
Yep, 9 I count as well. Very good. Right, so, actually like pretty easy, and he did 9, correct quench, right? So very simple. It kind of conveys what it needs to convey very quickly. Okay, so that's kind of how stem and leaf plots are used. Okay, all right, very good. So this time what we're going to do is we are going to get introduced to one more graph, and this is kind of, in my opinion, probably one of the most important graphs because we use it a lot in many different contexts. Okay, so it's called a histogram, and you guys actually might have heard it before. I feel like, or you might have seen it at least. Okay, so he's going to introduce you how to draw it and what it is from this video. Okay.
restaurant, and just out of curiosity, you want to see what the makeup of the ages at the restaurant are. So you go around the restaurant and you write down everyone's age. And so these are the ages of everyone in the restaurant at that moment. And so you're interested in somehow presenting this, somehow visualizing the distribution of the ages, because you want to just say, well, are there more young people? Are there more teenagers? Are there more middle-aged people? Are there more seniors here? And so when you just look at these numbers, it really doesn't give you a good sense of it. It's just a bunch of numbers. And so how could you do that? Well, one way to think about it is to put these ages into different buckets, and then to think about how many people are there in each of those buckets, or sometimes someone might say how many in each of those bins. So let's do that. So let's do buckets or categories. So I like, sometimes it's called a bin. So the bucket, I like to think of it more of as a bucket. The bucket, and then the number in the bucket. The number in the bucket. Number, I'll just write the number. Whoops. It's the number. It's the number in the bucket. All right. So let's just make buckets. Let's make them 10-year ranges. So let's say the first one is ages 0 to 9. So how many people, and let me just define all of the buckets here. So the next one is ages 10 to 19, then 20 to 29, then 30 to 39, and 40 to 49, 50 to 59. Make sure you can read that properly. And then you have 60 to 69. And I think that covers everyone. I don't see anyone 70 years old or older here. So then how many people fall into the 0 to 9-year-old bucket? Well, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people fall into that bucket. How many people fall into the 10 to 19-year-old bucket? Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3. 3 people. I think you see where this is going. What about 20 to 29? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. 5 people fall into that bucket. All right. What about 30 to 39? We have 1, and that's it. Only one person in that 30 to 39
So we
bin
can
or
like
bucket or category.
obviously
people.
kind of fast forward a little
59.
bit because
Finally,
it's obviously
one way of thinking about
easy to
the
count those.
visualization that we're going to create, this is called a histogram. 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 We're taking data that can take on a whole bunch of different values. We're putting them into categories, then we're going to plot how many folks are in each category. How big are each of those? How big are each of those categories? And actually, I wrote histogram. I wrote histograph. I should have written histogram. So a histogram. So let's do this. All right. So on this axis, let's see, the largest category has 6. So this is the number of folks, and it's going to go.
So what's important about a histogram is that on the y-axis, it's always going to be the counter, the frequency counter, how many of these things exist. And then on the x-axis, we are going to have these bins or buckets. He calls them buckets or bins. And those are going to be laid out on the x-axis. And this is to represent a continuous quantitative variable. Histograms are always dealing with quantitative variables, okay? Just like here.
Go 1, 2.
So he'll draw this.
Up a little bit now that I have my data here. I don't have to look at my data set again. So I have one bucket. This is going to be the 0 to 9 bucket.
So it's going to
0 to 9,
buckets.
there are 6 people. 0 to 9, there are 6 people. So I'll just
draw
it
that.
like that.
And then continuously he will draw all these buckets. And as you
I
can
should have
see,
made the bars wide enough so I could write below them, but I've already.
the y-axis is always just going to be a counter.
It's going to be this bar right over here. We have one person. Or it also have. And then finally, 60 to 69, we have one person. 60 to 69, we have one person. We have one person. And what I have just constructed, I took our data, I put it into buckets that are kind of representative of the categories I care about. 0 to 9 is kind of young kids, 10 to 19, I guess you could call them adolescents or roughly teenagers, although obviously if you're 10, you're not quite a teenager yet. And then all the different age groups. And then when I counted the number in each bucket and I plotted it, now I can visually get a sense of how are the ages distributed in this restaurant. This must be some type of a restaurant that gives away toys or something, because there's a lot of younger people. Maybe it's very family friendly. So every adult that comes in, maybe there's a lot of young adults with kids and or maybe grandparents up here, and they just bring a lot of kids to this restaurant. So it gives you a view of what's going on here. Just a lot of kids here, a lot fewer senior citizens. So once again, this is just a way of visualizing things. We took a lot of data that can take multiple data points. Instead of plotting each data point like we might do in a dot plot, instead of saying how many 1-year-olds are there, well, there's only one 1-year-old. How many 3-year-olds are there? There's only one 3-year-old. That wouldn't give us much information. We would just have like these single dots if we were doing a dot plot.
So he compares it to a dot plot, right, guys? And it is fine to draw a dot plot. There's no like, you know, reason not to, but as he said, maybe that won't give us the kind of overall picture we're looking for. So assuming that what we're looking for is kind of like we want to see the age range of all the people who are visiting, who are at this restaurant, doesn't really maybe matter to us that there's one 1-year-old and one 3-year-old. That's not really the point, right? The point is that, oh, under like 10, like a lot of children, there's this many. And in the teenage groups, there's this many groups. And as he said, because there's a lot more younger people, maybe it's a very family-friendly place where there's like extra stuff for kids, or kids' foods are on the menu and stuff like that, right? That's the picture we're trying to get. So there's nothing wrong with a dot plot, but maybe that's not kind of giving you the information as quickly as you might want it. So in this case, a histogram might be more appropriate.
But as a histogram, we're able to put them into buckets. And we're just like, hey, you know, generally between ages 0 and 9, we have 6 people. And so you see that plotted out just like that. And obviously this doesn't apply just to ages of people in a restaurant. It applies to all sorts of data that you might want to collect and observe.
All right, great. So that's the idea of a histogram, okay? And this is kind of introduced to you separately because I like went through the whole textbook, but I don't think there was a particular chapter on histogram. So just note, like, as you're taking notes, guys, I do, like, we are learning histogram, and I want you to know what it is. So there will be, you will be like answering questions about histograms in the problem sets and whatnot, but you might not find that topic in the, what's it called, the textbook. But I make all of these links available, so they should be there. So if you go to, let's see, I'll just double check that it is, go to Blackboard, and then go to content. Let's see, I believe it's under module 3 that I added those things. Okay, so I'll add this now. How a histogram. So this particular one I haven't added yet, so I'll add that right now. So it should show up at the bottom of module 3 in content. So in there, okay, creating histograms. And histograms are used a lot, like everywhere. Okay, and then let's take a look at this really quick. It's not every single point that this guy is making is like so crucial, but let's take a look at the difference between histograms and bar charts, since that's one of the things.
Hello, welcome to
Hold on, let me share my screen. Since we did learn bar charts, and we just got introduced to histograms, okay? All right.
Upload a new math video every day. But the difference, a histogram and a bar graph, both are ways to graph data. Both have an X and a Y axis, and both use a bar to display the data. With a histogram, the categories are numerical. For example, notice in this histogram, the X-axis is the age of the people in the room. The ages are grouped in a numerical range. In this next example, the histogram is graphing the score on a test and the number of people who scored in each range. Also, the bars touch with a histogram.
So in this particular one, the x-axis are the test scores, right? It's a continuous quantitative variable, right? It does, the numbers actually have a meaning, right? Getting 30 on your test or 40 on your test and 50 on your test definitely has a meaning. And then on the y-axis, it's counting how many of these scores appeared, right? Okay, so that's Instagram.
A bar graph uses categories such as the types of movies, color of eyes, and the bars do not touch. For example, with this bar graph, the categories are grade level and the number of student in each grade level. Notice that the bars do not touch. In another example, the categories are types of videos and the number of videos in each type.
Bars touching and not touching, it's not that important of a distinction. Really, the most important distinction is that we're dealing with categorical data in bar charts. And then in histograms, we are dealing with quantitative variables. You can draw this where the bars are slightly touching or not touching. That's not really that big of a deal, okay? So this is a little bit of an exaggeration that he's emphasizing.
Bars don't touch. In summary, histogram have bars that touch and use quantities. Bar graphs have bars that don't touch and use categorical data.
So the most important part is like the second part he's emphasizing, which is histograms utilizes continuous quantitative variables, or one variable in particular, right? You can only deal with one variable. And then bar graph is dealing with categorical variables, okay? So that's the really big thing. Usually, because histograms deal with a continuous quantitative variable and you make them bins, that's why touching is kind of important, because it's not like there's a gap between the numbers, right? It's continuous. And that's kind of why histograms typically will be touching. But I've seen histograms where people try to make it fancy and they add some gaps in there. And the gaps don't mean anything, but it's just kind of like a preference thing. But typically histograms do touch, and it's like a continuous variable that is represented on the x-axis. Okay, so now we know dot plots, stem and leaf plots, bar charts, and now histograms. Okay, so we got one more one more graph on our kind of list of graphs that we already know. All right, okay, so all right, so now let's everybody go to Blackboard and go to content as usual. And then we are on module 3 now, though that number 3 doesn't have a lot of meaning, as I was telling you. But we're gonna start something called central tendencies, guys, okay? So let's go into module 3. And then at the very top, it's gonna tell you module 3 textbook. We're gonna click on that first one, central tendencies. So we're gonna open up our book, okay? And we're gonna cover 3 concepts today, which I believe you probably would have heard at some point or another. It's very common things that we talk about in statistics. Mean, median, and mode, 3 M's. And once you hear it, even if you think you didn't hear it, once you read it, it'll become familiar and not too difficult. So pretty simple concepts, and that's the only histogram. And then the mean, median, and mode are the only new concepts we're gonna cover today. Okay, all right. So there are 3 main types of measures of the central tendency of a set of data values, M, mean, median, and mode, okay? All right, mean, probably everybody knows because it's also called an average, right? All right, so the very first paragraph, let's see, Samantha, could you read it for us?
The mean is what we also call the average. This is probably the most familiar measurement of central tendency you know. You already use this all the time.
Right, we use it all the time. Okay, so let's see if anybody remembers. So this is kind of officially how you write out the equation. Who remembers how to read this part right here? The one with the little line on top of the X. X bar. Excellent. Excellent, right? And what does it stand for? So the other one we learned that I told you was mu. right? That kind of weird Greek letter that's like sideways a little.
It's
Italicized.
the average of the sample.
Very good. Average of the sample, right? Because we're most of the time dealing with a sample. So the average of the sample, because we're dealing with the mean, which is another word for average. So we have X bar equals, right? This is how you would get an average. So let's say, without even looking at this equation, what if I asked you guys, let's say I'm gonna go around and ask one of you what your age is, for example. And then I want to get the average, or I want to get the mean of ages of all the students in this classroom. How would you calculate that, guys? What do we do?
You add everyone's age and you divide it by the number of people.
Very good. That's exactly correct, Alexis, right? You would add all of the ages of all the people, and then you divide it by the number of people. Okay, so this is exactly what this equation is saying. Just like, sorry, just using a lot of Greek symbols, okay? So X bar, the average is, and this sigma means that you're adding everything together. X is individually, like you're like X1, X2, X3, X4, X5, right? So X's are all the different like data points. And so we're gonna add all of them together, and then we're gonna divide it by the number of people, the number of units that's in this particular sample. And this is in the context of maybe getting the age of you guys. Alexis gave us a good example of how you would calculate that. Well, that's how we get the average, right? Not a hard concept. We do this all the time. A lot of things are reported, like the average what is, right? The average shoe size of like women in their 20s is, or the average age of the students at FIT is, the average salary of the FIT faculty is, right? We always hear about these things, right? And sigma is how we read this particular sign, which means that you're going to add all of them together, right? So it stands for the summation, and on the right means sum all the data values. I was calling them data points, right? All the data values. Okay, so for example, we have a very simple one right here. We have 10, 6, 5, 14, 6, 12. What you do is you add them together, which is that part up here, sigma x, and these are individual x's, x values, and then we divide it by the total, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So all of that added, divided by 6, comes around to 8.83. So the average of all these numbers is about 8.83. Okay, all right. So the mean, I feel like, any questions? It's pretty, I think, straightforward. It's a very familiar concept, even if you haven't taken a stats course before, right? All right, so what about median? Liam, could you read this for us?
The median of a sample is just the value that is in the middle of the data when you line them up in order from smallest to largest. If you have an odd number of data values, you just pick the middle value.
Very good. Literally, it means the middle, just smack down in the middle, okay? So if it were these data, these numbers, what usually you want to do is you want to rearrange it. You want to rearrange it from in an ascending or descending order, right? So from the smallest to the highest. And then you can count, there's two like numbers on the left side, and there's two numbers on the right side. And then there's one left in the middle. So in that case, the median is that middle number 3, okay? However, if there's only even numbers, obviously you're not gonna actually have a middle number. There's gonna be 2 middle numbers after you made it in ascending order. Then what you do is you add the 2 middle values and then you just divide it by 2. And then literally that will be smack down in the middle of these 4 numbers. And that's the median, okay? So literally it maybe physically is the actual number that's in the middle, but if that's not the case because of an even number of data values, then you add the 2 middle ones after you have rearranged it, and then you divide it by 2, and that's how you find the middle, okay? So it's very important that the median, you know that the median is going to be like located, physically located right in the middle of all the data entries, okay? This part here, Apurva, can you read that for us?
An important property of the median is that it splits the data right in the middle. The median has half the data above it and half the data below it. Remember, the mean is not guaranteed to be in the middle, but the median is.
Right? Okay, so the mean is not necessarily going to be in the middle, but the median will always be in the middle because median, by definition, is that it's in the middle. So half the data is going to be on its left and half the data is going to be on its right. Or in this case, half the data above it or half the data below it. Okay?
Professor, what's an example or like a life example of when you would need to find the median?
Okay, so it's like I paid you to ask that question. We are going to do an example right now. All right, so we're going to scroll down a little bit. Actually, I have it prepared for you. So let me just give you the access to the slides. So there's a, I will tell you, we're going to do an example where reporting the mean is actually not going to be super useful. In a way, it's actually going to be telling the wrong story. And so we would want to report the median. So let me just find that slide. Guys, why is it so hard to organize? Just have things like right there. Okay, so I think I found it. Okay, so in the chat, I am going to share a Google spreadsheet. So everybody, we're gonna go there, okay? I think it's taking a little bit of a second to open up. Okay. All right, so go ahead. I think you only have viewer access, so go ahead and actually make a copy. Go to File and save a copy in your drive. And so let's actually go calculate the mean and median here. And then I'll share my screen. So I just want to delete some of these things that I actually don't need. Delete columns A and B. Okay. So unfortunately, I gave away one answer from the spreadsheet you already have, but that's fine. Okay. So everybody see my screen? I'm going to zoom in a little bit. It's going to zoom in, or is it just really delayed? No? Okay. Here we go. So let's pretend
this one, the salaries one.
Salaries one, yep.
I'm not seeing it on Blackboard.
Oh, it's in the Zoom chat that I just sent you. Yes, maybe I should put it on Zoom. I mean, maybe I should put it on Thanks thing, but let me just. Do you see it in the Zoom chat, Jameson? I think she disappeared. I'll paste it one more time, but just go to this one that's in the that I shared in the Zoom chat. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is let's go ahead and calculate the mean. So let's pretend we're at a tiny little startup, and we have a few employees. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 employees who get these annual salaries. And then the sixth person is the CEO. This person like owns the company. So she gets paid that much, okay? So CEO, even though like there's only a few of them, wants to know like what people get paid on average, okay? So we're gonna go and calculate the mean. So in order to calculate the mean, we have to know the total, okay? So let's create the total. You can create it anywhere you want. I'll just create it I'll say total here. And I think it's already actually in your spreadsheet originally that I gave you. So I'm going to create the total, but let's do it again. So one way to do it is you can always, when you have to do an equation, you do equal. And one kind of manual way to do it is do this plus that plus the next one, right? You can do it this way. But then this one is kind of not efficient because why? There's only 6 things here, but then if you have like 100 rows and you don't want to do that 100 times. So the quickest way to do it is you have an equal sign here. There's a function called sum, which means a summation. So you're going to use that one, and usually it's the values go inside the bracket. What you're going to do is you're going to start from here, and then you're going to drag it all the way to the last cell you want it, and then it's going to give you a range from A2 to A7. For you guys, if you copied it over from my previous version, maybe it's C2 to C7 or B2 to B7. Anyways, it's going to say add all of these that are highlighted now, right? And then you can do it that way. So even though it's like 30 rows or 100 rows, that will be easy to do. Anyway, so that's how you get the total, right? In either one of those ways. Okay, so let's now calculate the mean. How would you calculate the mean? There's 2 ways to do it. So one is to kind of like actually spell out the equation, right? We do equal. And then what do we do, guys? Something like the total divided by how many people do we have at the company?
7.
6, right? That's one way to do it, okay? Another way to do it, it's kind of like the shortened version, just like we had a shortened version here. In Google Spreadsheet, there's an equation that does that for you right away. So you can do equal, and then you can type in average, okay? And then it opens up the parentheses again. Again, you're gonna select the first one, and then you're gonna drag it down through a column, if you will, to include all the ones you want to get the average of. Okay, so in that case, it will say, in my case, it will say A2 to A7. Maybe it's B2 to B7 for you guys, or C2 to C7. Go ahead and like select all of those and enter. Okay, so this is the mean. We got the total of that, and then we got the mean that's around $74,000. So what if somebody approached the CEO and told her, it looks like people are getting paid around $74,000 a year. And then the CEO goes, oh, that seems pretty good. It seems like a pretty high salary. What's wrong with that picture, guys?
They're not.
They're not. You should not.
Right? So really, if you look at them, and this is only a few people, so it's really easy to catch this right away. But just imagine maybe there could be like 100 employees, and like 90 of them get paid around 40,000, and only like the last 10 people get paid at executive levels, right? Then when you take the average, something like this is going to happen, where it seems like individual employees are getting paid more than they're actually getting paid. It's not, the mean is not saying that this is what people are getting paid, but it's saying that on average, this is what people are getting paid. So obviously people have to imagine, oh, some people are getting paid lower, which is true, lower than the average, and some people are getting paid higher than the average, which is also true. So it's not an incorrect statement, but when you say this, what people perceive is that, there's a bunch of people maybe making something around 70,000 or 74,000. And that's not actually an accurate picture, at least for this company. So then let's see what happens if we look at the median. So there's, this is actually in order. So 36,500. It actually has to be, oh yeah, that's 36 and 37, 39, 40. So it's actually in ascending order. So that's good. And there's 1, 2, 3. And if we start from here, 1, 2, 3. So there's not odd numbers. So there's even numbers. So what we're going to do is that we're going to equal. Remember, you're going to get the 2 middle numbers, this plus this. And actually, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to put them in parentheses. Because what did we want to do when we wanted to get the median, guys?
Divide values by 2.
Very good, Savannah. So we're going to divide it by 2. All right, so now, and I'll call this median, right? So the median now shows you that the median salary for the employees at this company is around 38,000. So how does that sound, guys?
That sounds more accurate.
Right? So this kind of works, and this is probably a better way of reporting this, is because you want to see, like, the median shows us that there's equal number of data values below that number, and there's equal number above that number, right? So it will show you a better kind of way of where the middle number is, as opposed to an average where it could get really skewed by a few data values. Like in this case, only one data value really skewed it to the higher end and will give you kind of the inaccurate picture of what's going on. Okay?
Professor, what if you had like big data? Like what if you had, you know, a lot more employees per se?
So what happens there, and if you guys stick around, maybe you can take the upper level stats course with me. So I teach a programming course where we use a programming language called R. It's a very robust, powerful programming language. When you deal with big data sets, and you might have heard of this phrase, big data, a lot, we're talking in numbers that you can't even like really comprehend, right? If you like talked about the monthly sales transaction data of Amazon, like in the world. I mean, it's in the gazillions. You can't even really like look at the raw data and understand what's going on, right? So if you want to get the mean and average of that, that's exactly why you use different tools like programming languages. So literally, if I opened up R and imported like a month's of Amazon transaction data, and I type in one thing, like literally you type in mean, and like say, give me the mean, and it gives it to you like this. And then I type in the median, and it gives it to you like this, right? And then I say, grab this variable, grab that variable, and draw a histogram for me, or draw a bar chart for me, then it draws it for you. And that's exactly why these tools are useful, because there's no way, first of all, you can't double click on big data and just open it up. No software application will be able to handle that kind of data, which is why you extract it. And then you do some exploration with it. Maybe you look at the mean, the median, maybe you draw a few graphs, and then you find some patterns, and then you do analysis with it. So that's kind of like the stuff that we do in the upper level math course, right? So because we don't want to try to like look at all like rows and columns, not that you can even like imagine how many rows and columns there could be in like Amazon sales transaction data or something like that. So that's when you use these tools so it can automatically do it for you. Yeah. In this case, it was quite easy to do, right? And the whole point is that the reason why this is a lower level stats course and the one I'm explaining as an upper level is that you do need to know the fundamental concepts of why you want to maybe look at the mean and the median, as opposed to just looking at one of these metrics. You need to know these principles in order to understand and analyze and go further and make inferences with bigger data sets. That's why it's in this kind of order, if you will, right? You kind of like, if you think about any math that you did in your life, you had to know addition in order to understand multiplication, that kind of way, right? So this is what we're doing. All right. So make sure that once you did actually calculate the total and calculated the mean and calculated the median, make sure that everybody right now goes to the upper right corner and share that with me right now. So if you type in, I'll type in the Zoom chat. If you type in this, I should pop up. Share that with me now. I'll check in my email that it's flowing in. There we go. Got it from Morgan, Savannah, Christina, Gianna, Deidre, Laura, Abby, Carrie, Samantha, Ashley, Liam, Polina, Amanda, Emily, Jenny, Naja. I think also Alexis. Refresh it. I feel like I'm missing. Joy just sent it. James Lynn sent it. Mara sent it. Keely sent it. Steffi sent it. Good, good, good. Okay. Right, very good. All right. So if you go back to the chapter, and I'll go ahead and share my screen again. Now that you know the mean and the median. And I'll scroll down here. This is the example that's actually in 11.4, and that's what we did in this Google spreadsheet. There are 5 salaries all about the same, and then there's that one CEO salary, right? X bar, which is the mean or the average, is about 74,000, and that doesn't seem to tell the whole story, right? But the median is this. So in this case, I'm putting in quotation marks, right? Median seems to be more representative of quote unquote average salary. And it's just doing a better job at describing that. This happens a lot in kind of a few categories. So here where we talk about income, right? If you were to let's pretend we are like working citizens of all different kind of states. And then we add like, I don't know, Bill Gates to our sample. And it's like, let's take the average of all of our wealth. Then his wealth is gonna skew us all the way to the higher end, and it's not gonna be representative, right? So just like the salary, income and wealth, these are very common things where the median is probably a better way to describe what's going on as opposed to the mean. And then this also becomes true for real estate and property values, right? Let's pretend you're describing like places somewhere near FIT in Chelsea, usually quite pricey, but there might be that one place that, I don't know, some celebrity lives in, and it's just like in the upper millions or whatever, and it skews everything, all the values to a higher end, right? In that case, that's not too good. So again, median is probably a more appropriate metric to use to describe what's going on, okay? So this happens quite a bit and very often. And if you pay attention to some of these articles that you are reading these days, or anything that has to do with these disease statistics and stuff like that, a lot of these concepts will come up, mean and median and stuff, okay? And last but not least, let's cover the third M, okay? Mara, can you read this one for us?
Sorry, didn't unmute. Okay. Finally, the mode of a sample is just the value that occurs most frequently.
Very good. Just most frequently. So usually, again, if you have a list of numbers like this, it's not great because it's kind of hard to tell what appears most often. So another way to kind of do this, just like we did with the median, is to make this in ascending order. So you do it all the way, the smallest one. So the smallest one actually does seem like it's 3. And then you do 3 again. So already you know that 3 appeared twice. And then you go 6, 7, 8, 9, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, I think I skipped 5. Anyways, in that kind of order, you list it so that you can see how many times each number occurred, okay? A stem and leaf plot would also maybe help you get to that answer quickly too, right? Okay, so now that we have learned mean, median, and mode, which are very, very, very important concepts, and it will come back again and again, we're now gonna combine these together. We're gonna look at histograms and bar charts, and we're gonna look at the mean and median and mode and combine all of those concepts together, okay? So let's take a look at that. Let me get the video ready. Oh, one thing that's gonna show in this video is another graph called the box plot. I'm not really certain that we need to really go into detail about it. So when it comes up, don't worry about it too much. Just know that it's a different kind of plot. And it will show you, but box plot has this interesting thing where literally you see a box and inside there's gonna be a line. That line is always the median. So that's really just the only thing you have to know for it, okay? So if it comes out and you're like, I don't know what that is, that's okay. Just kind of like go along with it. The rest of the video is the most important part, where we talk about mean and median in relationship to like histograms and bar charts, okay? And that one, I believe, I'm pretty sure I have that in the, I already posted it on Blackboard, I believe. Let's see. So let me go to Blackboard to find that one. Yeah, I think it was dot plots versus histograms versus box plots. Yes, I think it's that one. So let me get that open. Very slow today. Okay, so after this one, we'll talk about skewness. Okay, so here we go. Share my screen again. Oof, look how slow that is.
What I want to do in this video is look at some examples of data represented in different ways and think about which representation is the best or can help us answer different questions. So we see this first example. A statistician recorded the length of each of Pixar's first 14 films. The statistician made a dot plot. Each dot is a film, a histogram, and a box plot to display the running time data. Which display could be used to find the median? All right, so let's look at these displays. So over here we see the 14. This is the dot plot. We have a dot for each of the 14 films. So one film had a running time of 81 minutes. We see that there. One film had a running time of 92. One had a running time of 93. We see one had a running time of 95. We see two had running times of 96 minutes, and so on and so forth. So I claim that I could use this to figure out the median because I could make a list of all of the running times of the films. I could order them, and then I could find the middle value. I could literally make a list. I could write down 81, and then write down 92, then write down 93, then write down 95. Then I could write down 96 twice, and then I could write down 98. Then I could write down 100. I see where you go. I think you see where this is going. I could write out the entire list, and then I could find the middle value. So the dot plot I could definitely use to find the median. Now what about the histogram? This is the histogram right over here. And the key here is for median, to figure out a median, I just need to figure out a list of numbers. I need to figure out a list of numbers. So here, I don't know, they say I have one film that's between 80 and 85, but I don't know its exact running time. Its running time might have been 81 minutes. Its running time might have been 84 minutes. So I don't know here. And so I can't really make a list of the running times of the films and find the middle value. So I don't think I'm going to be able to do it using the histogram. Now, with the box plot right over here, so I'm not going to click histogram. With the box plot over here, I might not be able to make a list of all the values, but the box plot explicitly tells us what the median is. This middle line in the middle of the box that tells us the median is, what is this? This median is, if this is 100, this is 99. So this is 95, 96, 97, 98, 99. It explicitly tells us the median is 99. This is actually the easiest for calculating the median. So I'll go with the box plot. So the histogram is of no use to me if I want to calculate the median. Let's do a couple more of these. Nam owns a used car lot. He checked the odometers of the cars and recorded how far they had driven. He then created both a histogram and a box plot to display the same data. Both diagrams are shown below. Which display can be used to find how many vehicles had driven more than 200,000 kilometers? So how many vehicles had driven more than 200,000 kilometers? So it looks like here in this histogram, I have 3 vehicles that were between 200 and 250, and then I have 2 vehicles that are between 250 and 300. So it looks pretty clear that I have 5 vehicles, 3 that had a mileage between 200,000 and 250,000, and then I had 2 that had mileage between 250,000 and 300,000. So I'm able to answer the question. 5 vehicles had a mileage more than 200,000. And so I would say that the histogram is pretty useful. But let's verify that the box plot isn't so useful. So I want to know how many vehicles had a mileage more than 200,000. Well, I know that if I have a mileage more than 200,000, I'm going to be in the fourth quartile, but I don't know how many values I have sitting there in the fourth quartile, just looking at this data over here. So that's not going to be useful for answering that question. Let's look at the second question. Which display can be used to find the median distance? Which display can be used to find that the median distance was approximately 140,000 kilometers? Well, to calculate the median, you essentially want to be able to list all of the numbers and then find the middle number. And over here, I can't list all of the numbers. I know that there's 3 values that are between 0 and 50,000 kilometers, but I don't know what they are. It could be 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. It could be 10,000, 15,000, and 40,000. I don't know what they are. So if I can't list all of these things and put them in order, I really am going to have trouble finding the middle value. The middle value is going to be in this range right around here, but I don't know exactly what it's going to be. The histogram is not useful because it's throwing all the values into these buckets. While on the box plot, it directly tells me the median value. This line right over here, the middle of the box, this tells us the median value. And we see that the median value here, this is 140,000 kilometers, right? This is 100, 110, 120, 130, 140,000 kilometers is the median mileage for the cars. And so the box plot clearly gives us that data.
All right, so that kind of gives you a little bit of what kind of information can be drawn easily from the different plots. As I said, we didn't really cover box plots, but the most important thing is that that line that goes through the box is the median. So immediately, if you want to find the median, that's probably the easiest. Histograms are good at kind of locating how many are above some number or how many are below, like just because they're put into buckets, that's easy. But anyways, there's different purposes, and that's kind of like what the point is, to learn all these graphs. Okay, so far we did dot plots, stem and leaf plots, bar charts, and histograms, okay? And then we learned the 3 big M's, the mean, median, and the mode, right? The average and the middle number, and the mode as in what appears the most frequently. Okay, so one last concept we're gonna learn today, and it's related to histogram, is skewness or symmetry, okay? And I'll explain what that is, because if you look at histograms, and we looked at a few today, if you were to kind of draw like a line above it, some are kind of like this curve that we call a normal curve, or some have a peak like at the right end, or some have a peak at the left end. Some might have several peaks if you were to draw like around the line of all the kind of bars in a histogram. So how do we describe that? The distribution is the word we use. How do we describe the distribution? When it comes to the distribution, we're always talking about whether something is symmetrical or not, if you were to like fold it in half, for example. So this is what this video is going to show you that. And as it's explaining that, there's some of the concepts we have learned will be covered as well. Okay, but skewness is the last thing we need to we're covering today, and it's important because skewness is often used to describe the distribution of a histogram, okay? So that's the last link that you will see in Module 3 on Blackboard. Oh, no, that's not it. I must have gotten the wrong. Oh, no, no, the last one is what I added during the class, right? It's second to the last one that says symmetry and skewness, of course. That makes sense. Okay, so let me share my screen.
In this video, we will be looking at symmetry and skewness. When we talk about symmetry and skewness, we are actually talking about the shape of a distribution. We had previously talked about how we can use histograms, stem plots, and box plots to display a distribution. We will be using these tools to help us talk about symmetry and skewness. A distribution is said to be symmetrical if it can be divided into 2 equal sizes of the same shape. In contrast, this would be a histogram that is not symmetrical. This is classified as a skewed distribution. Skewness refers to asymmetry. We can have distributions that are skewed to the left, and we can have distributions that are skewed to the right. We read skewness based on the direction in which the data points cluster. A distribution is said to be skewed to the left if it has a long tail that trails towards the left. In contrast, a distribution is said to be skewed to the right if it has a long tail that trails towards the right side.
All right, so right skewed is this one, and then left skewed is to the other one. These two concepts are very, very, very important. I actually put questions like this in the Lumen problem set that you guys will be doing soon. So remember these, okay? It seems to be a little bit confusing for people that this is skewed to the right. Although when I look at it, it really just seems like it's skewed, like slanting to the right, you know, like going down a slope for skiing or something. So anyways, make sure that you get this skewness correct, okay? This is skewed to the right, where the long tail is going, okay?
The same thing can be applied to a stem plot. This stem plot would be skewed to the right. A good way to determine the skew of a stem plot is by flipping it onto its side. When you view the stem plot this way, you must make sure that the position of the stems are positioned like a regular number line, where the lower number starts from the left and increases towards the right. We can see that there is a long tail that trails towards the right, so we can say that this distribution is skewed to the right. When determining skewness for box plots, the presence of outliers may affect how we interpret the skewness. For example, for this data set, we can construct this regular box plot. We might think that this distribution is skewed to the left, but when we convert it to the modified box plot, we can see that this data set is actually skewed to the right.
You don't have to worry about the box plots, okay? This one, I think we can just like skip over. Don't worry about the box plots too much.
Implement a strategy. If we have unequal boxes, the side of the box that is larger determines the skew.
Hold on a second. Let me just skip over that one. We could go over this, but I think it's enough graphs that we like introduced already. So let's skip that one. Okay.
If we have a symmetrical distribution, you should notice that the plane of symmetry will always be at the median because it is the middle data point. And because the mean is the balance point of a distribution, you should also find that the mean is equal to the value of the median.
So this is a very, very unique case where the distribution is exactly symmetrical, right? You can like fold it where the 12 is and it'll be exactly the same. And that means exactly there, that's where the mean is, and that's also where the median is. That's usually never the case because nothing is that perfectly symmetrical, but that's in theory, if it's perfect, the distribution is perfectly symmetrical, this is what will happen with the mean and median. However, when we have a skewed distribution, that will not be the case, okay?
In this case, both the median and the mean would be equal to 12. Now, if the distribution was skewed, the median would not be at 12 anymore. Remember that the bars of a histogram always correspond to the frequency. And so we see that to the right of 12, we have more data values than there are to the left of 12. By doing some calculations, you should find that the value of the median is contained within the interval between 16 and 18. And because the mean is the balance point of a distribution, skewness will affect it, so it will be closer to the tail. So we say that if a distribution is skewed to the left, the mean is less than the median. In other words, the mean will be closer to the left side of the distribution, and the median will be closer to the right side of the distribution. In contrast, if we have a distribution that is skewed to the right, the mean is greater than the median. In other words, the mean will be closer to the right side of the distribution, and the median will be closer to the left side of the distribution.
Okay. All right, so this is the last part. So remember that when the distribution is skewed to the left, so you have a long tail, we'll have a smaller mean but a higher median. And then when we have the opposite kind of a graph, basically we have a right tail, so a right skewed graph. The median is closer to the left side and the mean is closer to the right side, okay? If you kind of like not, instead of saying it like that, if you just kind of think about the numbers and where the clusters are, it might be easier to imagine, okay? But do know that you need to know right skewed versus left skewed, okay? And then obviously we did 3 M's, mean, median, and mode. Okay, let me just like pause that for a second. All right, so quite a bit that we covered. We got introduced to a new type of graph, a histogram. And remember that it's frequency, a counter on the y-axis. And then on the x-axis is a quantitative variable, a continuous one where we put numbers into bins, right? We kind of like have these ranges. And then for the bar chart, unlike that, even though bars are also involved, we are dealing with categorical variables, okay? We did that. In terms of central tendency, we learned about the mean, median, and mode. And especially between mean and median, we talked about how, depending on the context of what you're talking about, the mean might be more appropriate or the median might be more appropriate to kind of deliver the whole picture of what's going on, like the example we did with the salaries at a company, okay? And then in addition to that, we talked about symmetry and distribution, right? Histogram, you know, we like draw these kind of graphs. These are, we're gonna talk more about it, called a normal distribution. But anyways, we can draw these graphs and we can talk about if something is symmetrical or asymmetrical. And in terms of asymmetrical descriptions, in particular, we learned about right-skewed histograms and left-skewed histograms. All right, in terms of, you don't need to memorize all of this, but you do need to, like when I talk about it, you need to be like, that's what we were talking about. I understand the concept, okay? Of the things that we covered today, are there any questions? All right, that's pretty good. So I'll let you guys out early today. So I feel like I didn't give you a break last time too, or something like that. Try to make you give you guys a break by letting you out early. Go ahead and start mod 3 questions assignment. I believe it's the dot plot distributions. So if you go to Blackboard, content, and even though it might not make sense, we're in module 3. And particularly, we're in central tendencies in module 3. There's going to be 2 spreadsheets that's going to be assigned to you guys. You can like do all of them, obviously. Never mind. You can't do the ATM dot plots just yet because we did not learn the standard deviation. Okay, so you don't have to start that one. Instead, go to mod 3 questions assignment. So that's at the top, right below the textbook. And then start doing those. And the ones you can answer, because there's several sheets, it should be example 1, which does mean versus median, which is great. And then I'm sure you can do example 2, it seems like. And then it seems like you can also do example 3. Yeah. Mean enrollment, maybe even up to example 4. Like example, so start doing those. Nothing is due yet, but start doing like example 1, example 2, and example 3. And maybe Wednesday I'll give you some time so that we can do it in class and I can take some questions as well. So start doing that particular spreadsheet called mod 3 questions. Remember, you're gonna go to file and save a copy in your drive. Okay, all right, any last questions? I think later on, James Lynn, I do see you, okay? So I will not mark you absent.
I emailed you because I was trying to log in. I was like the only participant. I think I emailed you like.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's good. Just so you guys know, emailing me is great, but you know, once I start a class, right, I'm not really checking my email that much, so that's probably why you haven't heard from me. Okay.
Yeah, it just wasn't working at all. Like I clicked the link, I was the only participant, and I emailed you about that. I thought there was a problem with the link.
Oh. So how did you get in the like later?
I had to leave. Like I
left and then you came back in. Okay, I see. All right, guys. I'll see you Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.